system now that goes to collect data from the various countries and keeps monitoring at what level individual countries are, so that if we're not doing well, we can flag it.
To realize our potential, we need to stand on our feet by ourselves.
The leadership of the Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria, BON, has expressed confidence and satisfaction with the ongoing analog to digital broadcasting switchover in the country. Chairman of BON, John Momo, stated this shortly after a meeting of stakeholders with the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed.
To deliberate on issues affecting the industry. Overall, the entire meeting is to ensure the survival of the industry.
Just strengthen our resolve that we need to work together to sanitize our industry and to assist the industry to grow.
We're going to be leaving here with smiles on our faces. Will be an understatement. I think we're very happy, but it's work in progress.
Kaduna State Government has commenced the sacking of more than 4,000 local government workers in the state. Commissioner of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs, Jafar Usani, confirmed this while briefing journalists in Kaduna.
Regrettably, over the years, the capacity of the 23 local governments to effectively render services to their communities has been hampered by the overbloated workforce that they carry.
And that's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria. We'll be back with Claire and Kingsley after this break. Good morning.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem promptly through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) hereby informs the general public that shareholders that are yet to register for the ongoing free e-dividend registration should approach their banks or registrars to mandate the bank accounts for the collection of their dividend electronically, including unclaimed dividends not exceeding 12 years of issue. The free registration sponsored by SEC closes on 31st December 2017. Furthermore, investors that bought shares of the same company during public offers using different names are given forbearance up till 31st December 2017 to approach their stockbrokers or registrars to regularize their shareholdings in line with the Securities and Exchange Commission's rules on customer identification. Thereafter, all shares not regularized shall be transferred on trust to the Capital Market Development Fund. These are part of the Securities and Exchange Commission's initiative to further improve investors' benefit and confidence in the Nigerian capital market. Reorganized, trained, and fully equipped, we are the new improved Nigeria Police Force. We fight crime. We bust syndicates. Whatever the crime, wherever the hideout, the Nigeria Police Force will get you busted. Stop kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, pipeline vandalism, and other criminal activities. Be productive. Be security conscious. Join the police force to secure your life and property. This message is from the Nigeria Police Force Public Relations Department.
By social standards, some careers do certainly look like they pack more punches than others.
You can't believe my father wants me to play football at this age.
Wake up! My Koboko is handy. What's my business with your son's dream? One doom like that. £50,000 a minute!
And we make the mistake of assuming that it is the career that is better and not the sheer determination and dexterity of those practicing the career.
My talent no life for singing at all.
What will be your talent?
I want to be a teacher.
No career is less than the other. Just strive to be the best. Professor John Bull, your rib-cracking comedy, takes a look at career choices this week.
You must not force a child to pursue a career where they have no talent.
I remember you telling Churchill not to go into music.
Oh yes, your brother was a disaster. Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow.
The largest data network. Glow Unlimited. Whenever pain occurs, you want quick relief. Try new Nurofen Express. It goes to the source of pain and gets to work in under 15 minutes. That's why Nurofen Express delivers fast and effective relief. New Nurofen Express works at the source of pain. Fast.
Being a mom is great, but when your child has a fever, you don't know what to do. I trust Nurofen for Children to take care of my child's pain and fever.
Effective relief you can trust.
Your perfect family is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. Every day, 16,000 children under the ages of 5 and thousands of adults die from infectious diseases. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily. In unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilet, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 Cap Full for surface cleaning in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid, to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol Sure. Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
Now, let's take a look at some business stories. Expectations are high as OPEC meets tomorrow to decide whether or not to sustain current output cuts. Plus, negative sentiment on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange are rested in the meantime. Kolo Mohammed has details of this.
Good morning and thank you for joining us on Business News. As OPEC sets to meet tomorrow, oil prices slipped yesterday amid uncertainty over a possible extension of output cuts by major crude producers and expectation of higher supply as the Keystone Pipeline restarts. Brent futures went down 12 cents or 0.2% to close at $63.72 a barrel. Members of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, and other key producers, including Russia, will meet tomorrow to discuss whether to continue with the cuts after they agreed last January to withhold 1.8 million barrels per day of output. Frontline producers say while they believe the meeting will not be an easy one, they are however optimistic that the organization will do what is best for the market. Some traders are starting to consider the possibility that while producers may agree to extend output cuts, the scale of the output cuts may be reduced from the current 1.8 million barrels per day. And the Association of Motor Dealers in Nigeria say it is in support of the initiative by the government to ensure duty is paid on all imports. Speaking in Abuja, Ajibola Adedoyin, president of the association, said it was bad that the intention of the government through the Nigerian Customs Service was misconstrued in the first place, and solicited that the slim window earlier provided be reopened so debtors can meet up their obligations. This, he said, will aid in government's quest to block loopholes and generate revenue.
We know he has no bad intentions, but all what we need is that we need to open up some things to him so that we can synergize and let him know that, look, if given this, then his work will be made better.
He, however, called on government to ensure the workability of the automotive policy, which intends to ensure a viable auto industry in the country. The equities market overturned the loss on which it opened the week as NSE All-Share Index gained 0.68% to close at 37,503.73 basis points. Let's now see closing figures from Tuesday's trading. That's business news. Good Morning Nigeria continues shortly. Thanks for your time.
Kolo Mohammed, thank you. Newspaper review is next.
Bayo Atwebi, our newspaper reviewer, is right here with us for today's edition. Bayo, morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning. Good morning, Claire. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Claire, let's begin. We have different headlines on the front pages of the papers today, but a few stories come on to them, including, for instance, that story on the economy, specifically the 2018 appropriation. Let's take a look at this day newspaper. This day newspaper, above the nameplate of this day, that says senators say 2018 budget projections are unrealistic, with two riders. Want oil benchmark raised to $50, and House berates poor implementation of 2017 capital vote. That's the second lead story there on the front page of this day newspaper. Then it's also the lead story. The budget is the lead story for the Authority newspaper. It comes with a kicker. 2018 budget. National Assembly may stop allocations to, in quote, dead MDAs. National Assembly may stop allocations to dead MDAs. Claire, those are the stories that I have. But the lead story for this day newspaper, back again to this day newspaper, would be Saraki accuses anti-graft agencies of looting recovered funds and property. Saraki is Senate President, and then above that and immediately below the nameplate, a new rapprochement. Buhari and Tinubu leave for AU summit as Agbakoba, Duke, Balewa, and others join forces for constitutional change. Also there on the front page of this day, it says, I will remain in APC, says Adamawa Governor Jubrila. And lastly, from the front page of this day newspaper, just atop the strip advert there, it says, Federal government launches action plan to prevent and counter terrorism. It's right there. You can see the headline now. The details can be found on page 9. Federal government launches action plan to prevent and counter terrorism. Details on page 9. Claire.
All right, Kingsley. Let's stay with the lead stories running on all the papers, and that's on the budget. But the Nigerian pilot has a caption which is quite sensational. Well, the writer's there, but I'll read it to you. NAS begins debate on 2018 budget estimates. Now listen to the writers. Budget is dead on arrival. That's Baribe. And lawmakers suggest selling of FRCN, VON, NOA, and REBS lament budget failure. Bayo, I think we should begin with that.
Yes, budget. Budget is a matter of concern. At the Senate, the debate on the 2018 appropriation bill raised a lot of concern. There were general concerns about the poor implementation. In fact, especially the capital vote. They pointed out that of the 1.2 trillion, less than 15% of that has been released. A senator who tagged the budget as fictitious was compelled to withdraw that because it was an unparliamentary language. Another senator, however, identified funding as the main challenge of the 2016 to 2017 budget. He said you can have a big budget, but when returns of funds are not forthcoming for projects, then budget will go nowhere. Also at the House of Representatives, they also lamented the dismal implementation of the budget, but this time their concern was about the non-implementation of the 100 billion capital component meant for the constituency intervention. Members said that the government did very well by steering the economy out of recession, but they lamented that for the capital component, there were suggestions to beef up oversight. The implication of this is this. The budget 2017 was passed on June 12th, and the budget so far is in the second month of the second quarter, and therefore it still has 7 months to run. However, because they want to go back to the January to December budget cycle, you will recall that when the Minister of Budget and National Planning visited the National Assembly, they proposed to roll over at least 50% of 2017 budget to 2018. So that is why you are having this mix-up. In fact, the chairman of the Joint Appropriation Committee, Senator Danju Magoji, actually proposed that if there are going to be any rollover, they should roll over 60% of the budget. Meanwhile,
I don't understand this rolling over, you know, with zero budgeting. How do we? I don't understand.
Well, a budget is an expenditure plan. You anticipate that this amount of revenue will come and you use it for this. The revenues are not forthcoming. You want to take a loan. The loan has not been finalized and the year is running out. And you now have a plan. You want the budget cycle to take a January to December tour. Therefore, you are forced now to either implement 2017 budget within 6 months or carry it over. And that is why they are proposing that they will roll over 60% of the budget of 2017 to 2018.
Let them deal with the figures before them concerning 2018 appropriation. Let us see how the calendar is eventually synchronized. All of these issues, people are concerned as to the ultimate benefits with regard to what the budget is intended to deliver, whether mostly on the capital side, as well as recurrent. Of course, federal workers do not have the challenges that state workers face in terms of emoluments and payments and so on and so forth. Let's, Claire, you have other headlines?
Yes, I have other headlines, and the leadership reads, PMB not thinking of 2019 at the moment, and this is attributed to the Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, and it comes with, again, 3 riders. Says, President more concerned about delivering on campaign promises. Insists recovered loot will be accounted for, and we must address root causes of violent extremism, federal government. All those you can find in greater details on page 6. But at top, just a little below the nameplate, EU earmarks 10 billion naira for Nigeria's anti-corruption fight. That's about, as reported here, 23.3 million euros. Okay.
All right, let's take a look at Daily Asset. Daily Asset, 2 stories. It's a weekly, by the way. 2 headlines we'll be taking a look at. That will be the lead and then the second lead. Below the nameplate says 2019 APC mulls automatic ticket for Buhari and governors, with 2 riders, Saraki and Dogara, to retain posts, and Northern Christian Caucus begins search for candidate. Now, the story says that contrary to its widely publicized position that elected officials of the party will have to go through primaries to get re-election tickets, the APC may have quietly resolved to reserve automatic tickets for incumbent President Muhammadu Buhari if he decides to recontest. Now, second lead story there on the front page also of Daily Asset says CCB leadership rule, that's Code of Conduct Bureau. Code of Conduct Bureau, Leadership Bureau, that says court order shuts down operations. Court order shuts down operations. It says that, of course, that directors and management staff who report to work daily at the CCB but cannot discharge any function is on account of a subsisting court order which has restrained the management and staff from carrying out any activity while Mrs. Folashade Kolawole hangs on as acting secretary of the Bureau. So that's the second lead story from Daily Asset. And very quickly from the Authority newspaper, above the nameplate of the Authority newspaper, there are a number of headlines there, but let's take a few of them. Mena Gate, CNPP demands suspension of Malami Dambazaw and others. That's on page 4. Also on page 4, Atiku, that's the kicker, Aisha Al-Hassan meets Buhari, may resign. And Imo lawmakers foil budget presentation by Okorocha.
Just to add to the Mena Gate, we also have that story on the Nigerian pilot, just a little below the nameplate. And it says, Mena to Nigerians, I'll release documents that will fetch FG 3 trillion naira.
Well, let's start with the new baby on the Nigerian newsstand, Daily Asset. It was launched over the weekend, and it is the publisher is Dr. Cletus Acquire. And at the launch, he appealed that Nigerian journalists should place the unity of Nigeria above all considerations. Meanwhile, they have been concerned about the war against corruption. Senate President, while inaugurating a committee of the Senate, expressed concern that foreign nations are reluctant to refund stolen monies because they are afraid that the anti-graft agencies are accused of looting some of the funds. And if we can add that to the latest from Abdulrashid Maina, he said that he had given information to the Attorney General of the Federation that helped locate about 1.3 trillion. And he still has information that he will locate 282 billion cash that was got with 43 suspects. He says that his life is in danger. He has been threatened. He says he is not a saint, but if he is given the protection, he's prepared to provide information that will help government locate up to 282 billion that is cash that is still stashed in the country. The latest is the controversy between the Governors Forum and Labour. The Governors Forum said the president did not say they should pay all salary arrears before Xmas. And the Labour is saying, Issa Aremu is saying that if they don't pay, they will advise workers to vote governors out of office.
All right, Bayo Atuebe, we'd like to thank you very much. Again, we just touched on that very briefly when the subject first broke. The governors do not require the president to advise or direct them to pay salaries. Could you imagine an economy, for instance, where you had to pay your mortgage on a monthly basis? What would you do if you were in arrears of your mortgage for 8 or 9 months or even 6 months? Of course, you'll be on the street, out on the cold. Bayo Atuebe, that's the most we can take in a review segment. Thank you for being here. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be facing another issue, namely the state of secondary and vocational education in Nigeria.
The Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture, the Made in Nigeria campaign. In the midst of unprecedented multiple challenges, our great country Nigeria, as Africa's largest economy, is surely marching on to a new era of all-round prosperity, especially through re-engineered and diversified economy, powerfully driven by the change agenda of President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR.
We will patronize local entrepreneurs. We will promote the manufacturing powerhouses. Our objective is to make Nigeria a new manufacturing hub.
It is not time to complain. It is time to join the campaign. It is time for economic recovery, growth and diversification of our economy by Made in Nigeria.
Helen! Your kitchen gets 10 out of 10. Thank you. This also gets a 10. Should we see the toilet now? Sure. This gets just 1. It is clean. But not perfect 10. Better than my detergent and bleach? Impossible. Challenge? Try the new Apic 10X. Compared to bleach and detergent, Apic sticker formulation removes yellow stains times better, giving you a sparkling clean toilet. Wow. Now you also take that Apic 10X challenge.
Also available in 200 ml pack.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
I was distressed to notice that some of the comments, especially in the social media, have crossed our national red lines by daring to question our collective existence as a nation. This is a step too far.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Sir Ahmadu Bello, Chief Obafemi Awolowo.
These patriots worked together to achieve independence for one united Nigeria. Although some may say Nigeria is a mistake, we all know that the Almighty never makes mistakes.
God has not made a mistake by bringing us all together in the way that He has brought us together. God has put us together here so that we can build a community that will be an example to the entire world.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
All right, let me welcome you once again. If you've just joined us, this is Good Morning Nigeria. We're transmitting live from Abuja, Nigeria's capital city, and it's on the nation's network service, the NTA. Now, if you've missed yesterday's discussion on the, of course, the state of primary education in Nigeria, you have another opportunity to listen to some of the highlights from our guest, as Timothy Yusuf provides for us this background insert.
The state of basic education in Nigeria, put simply, is to say that it's in dire straits. It is, it's a vast system. We have to work with the state, and we work with the state in this particular area. And then we have other funds in the area of special education. That, also is into 2% of the 2%, goes for special education. And then instructional materials, that are also part of that particular process.
Why, in spite of all of this, we are still having this dismal picture, what you refer to as the dire straits?
You're absolutely right, in the sense that UBEC is only intervening. We have to go back and see how do we develop that kind of synergy within the system that can move us forward.
And you have to have the political will, not just to give money and give money and give money. You have to go through a structural changes in the way you cover those areas that are not covered by education. You have to do a structural way in bringing parents and put legal issues in ensuring that children who are seen roaming streets and not going to school are brought within the fold school, and take either the government, the local government, and the parents responsible for not having universal access.
Apart from the Boko Haram insurgency that afflicted and inflicted serious problem on the education system in the state, the quality of teachers is certainly a sorry state. In a situation where you can get dozens of teachers where they specialize basically in social studies and religious studies, only about 2 to 3% you can get qualified teaching in English and mathematics. One pathetic aspect you can see in most of our schools, you can see that English is handled by a teacher who is teaching social studies, who specializes in social studies. Mathematics usually being taken by teachers of religious studies. So you can see a lot of messy situation in the system. You come to wonder where actually the problem lies.
Going forward, what is the plan of action that we all can contribute to and agree to? So there is definitely a need for a more sort of incisive and intentional dialogue by all stakeholders involved. And if we can continue to do what we're supposed to do, holding people responsible, having a strong accountability system, training our teachers, training our education managers, both teaching and non-teaching staff, and holding our contractors even accountable too. You go around the country, even in our state, we see the quality of work being done, and there has to be at some level a sense of righteous indignation to be able to do this work, because our children do not deserve to be where they are now, where they are languishing across the country, languishing in our public education system. And even though resources are limited, but from the little we have, we can do so much.
right, what you just listened to were excerpts from discussion yesterday when we had guests taking on the basic level of education in the country. Now we have guests with us here already, as well as at remote locations to examine secondary and vocational education. First, we'd like to welcome our regular guests on education matters, Chief Sylvester Onoja. Chief Sylvester Onoja, of course, is former principal, King's College, Lagos, and also a former commissioner for education in Kogi State. At some point, also, he was chair of the Teaching Service Commission in that state. Chief Onoja, always a delight having you. Good morning, Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay. Also here with us in the studios is Mr. Jonathan Mbaka. He is former director of basic education, but is currently in charge of the Federal Education Quality Assurance Service Department. That's the former Inspectorate Division of the Federal Ministry of Education. Mr. Mbaka, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
And then from our Ibadan studio, we have Professor Ifeoma Usiogu Abanihe. She's Registrar and Chief Executive of NABTEP. NABTEP, of course, stands for National Business and Technical Examination Board, National Business and Technical Examination Board. The headquarters is in Benin. But Professor Ifeoma Usiogu Abanihe, a pleasure to have you join us on the program this morning.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
All right, Kingsley. We also have from our Ibadan Center, Mrs. Modupe Okibukola. She's a retired Director of Education and Principal of Fairmost Federal Unity College in Lagos. We'd like to appreciate you, Madam. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you, and good morning, Nigeria.
All right, and from our Ibadan studio, we also, our Kaduna Network Center, we have two guests joining us from there. First, let me quickly introduce Hussaini Haruna Mohammed, who is the Deputy Director, Technical Trade Division, also of the National Board for Technical Education. Thank you very much, Mr. Haruna Mohammed, for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians.
And Elizabeth Modi is also seated right there, and she's Director General, Peugeot Automobile Learning Center in Kaduna. Thank you very much, Madam, for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigeria. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's begin with Chief Onoja. Chief Onoja, what do we know about the state of secondary, if you like, also vocational education in Nigeria today? What is the picture that we have of it?
Secondary education in Nigeria today is in a very sorry state. And secondary education in Nigeria is an orphan, belongs to nobody. Nobody is interested in the quality of secondary education in Nigeria. And I always want to go back in history when I discuss about education in Nigeria. The first secondary education first secondary school in Nigeria was 1850 when they started the CMS Grammar School in Bariga in Lagos. It finally took off as a senior secondary school on the 6th of June in 1859. Before then, the Baptist Academy in Lagos was established in 1855. After that, the first girls' secondary school, the Methodist Girls High School in Yaba, was established in 1879. The first teacher training institution was first in Abuja in 1859. They call it the training institution. It was training catechists and then teachers. Then the missionaries were sent out of Abuja and the school moved to Lagos in 1867. It didn't stay in Lagos for quite some time. It moved to Oyo in 1875. That became St. Andrew's College, Oyo. That was the beginning of teacher training. Then came other teacher training institutions. The Wesley College in Ibadan started in 1905. Quality teaching, teachers have always been there. And secondary education, in eastern Nigeria, for example, the first secondary school was in 1923, the Methodist Boys High School, Uzuakoli. was established in 1923 as the first secondary school. Then the second one, the DMGS, Dennis Memorial Grammar School, Onitsha, was 1925. The first government secondary school in eastern Nigeria was 1929, Government College Umuahia. The first government school in Nigeria that was established by the British Parliament was King's College in 1909. And I can go on to Barewa College and others. It has stood for quality education. Secondary education has always been there in good health. You know, up to 1926, we had about almost 24 secondary schools in Nigeria at that time. But today, the quality of secondary education in Nigeria is down. It's almost dead. Schools have been neglected. Why did I say secondary school is an orphan? First, it is only secondary education that has no regulatory body. Even there is UBEC for primary schools. There's NUC for universities, the National Board for Technical Education for technical colleges, for polytechnics and monotechnics. There is the NCCE for colleges of education, but there is no regulatory body for secondary education. It's for all commerce. Secondary education, anywhere you go, there is a secondary school. Tomato sellers who have no good business have established secondary schools of their own. Nobody is regulating secondary education. Today, in almost all the secondary schools, including the ones owned by government, there are no teachers. There are no qualified teachers. I was principal of King's College. This year, King's College is the best school in Nigeria in West African School Certificate Examination. King's College came first. Today, as I speak, King's College has 80 teachers paid by the PTA. 80. Now, most of the schools are empty. There are no teachers. Some of the teachers are not qualified. We have problem with teacher training. People who have experience, people who have knowledge are no longer available in secondary schools. They are no longer teaching in secondary schools. And there are all sorts of mushroom secondary schools, private secondary schools, everywhere, nobody regulating them. I was commissioner for education in Kogi State, and when I assumed duties in 2007, there were 16 physics teachers in the entire state with 244 secondary schools.
16?
16 physics teachers. But by 2009, with the government at that time in power, we recruited 2,500 science teachers. Today, some of those teachers are nowhere. And I know in 2011, I was appointed to head an investigation or kind of go to all the federal government colleges in Nigeria to find out what they need, what they needed at that time. The report we brought, nobody looked at it. We went to schools, the teachers were not there.
Okay,
and then there are schools. Not only that, there are 80 secondary schools that are not directly under the Ministry of Education. There are schools run by the Army, the command secondary schools. There are schools run by the Navy. There are schools run by the Ministry of Defense. Even there, the PTAs are, the teachers are not there. So the main aim of secondary education as the main basis before you get to tertiary institution is virtually dead. And one of the most dangerous things that is happening to secondary education is the formation of character.
Let's put you on hold and get Mr. Jonathan Mbaka, who is, of course, currently serving in the Ministry of Education. Would you share the sorry, the same views? He has painted a very sorry picture of what he believes is the reality at the secondary tier of education. Do you share those views?
Well, as we all know, education in Nigeria, especially at the primary and secondary level, is on the concurrent list, which means that the states, along with the federal government, legislate on secondary education. So, and we find that the bulk of the secondary schools that we have are being regulated by the states. The federal government, on its own part, has 104 colleges, which are supposed to be models. They were established first and foremost as models so that others could copy from them, and then secondly, to serve as centers of unity, so as to help in uniting the country. Well, over the years, we must say that there have been things that have come up, and certain things have not really gone the way they should. For example, at a point in time, state governments were owing salaries, and in fact are still owing salaries to teachers. And this discourages teachers. The teachers have not really been given their proper place in the society, because the teachers are the ones who make the education system what it is. And because the society does not give adequate recognition to teachers, you find that the best brains don't really want to go into teaching, first and foremost. And then, even those who go in, they are there, many of them see themselves as being there just until they get something better and they move. And as long as that continues, you find that there will be problems in the education sector. And then, infrastructure-wise, we find that you go to many schools, some of the schools that are old, over the years, they have not been adequately maintained. And so you find that the infrastructure has gone down. And government that is not paying salaries also finds it difficult to look at the infrastructure in the schools. So as he has pointed out, you go to many of these schools, you find that it is the PTA that is truly moving the things. But for the federal government, we are trying with our schools because, for example, each Federal Unity College has its own budget, including capital budget, to take care of the facilities in the school.
But before we get to Ibadan, where Mrs. Modupe Okebukola, let me put you in the hold. Let's bring in Mrs. Okebukola, who is, of course, a retired director of education and principal of one of the foremost federal university. Mr. Okebukola, according to the National Policy on Education, secondary education is meant to prepare, recipient or students both for higher education and also, to become, to have a means of living, useful living, within our society. In terms of structure and superstructure, do you think that our secondary education have been able to meet those needs?
Oh, well, we have not been able to meet the needs, if we are to be honest. For example, many secondary school students do not even qualify for tertiary education. And that's one of the objectives of having secondary schools. Because, as mentioned earlier, they have not been prepared well. The teachers are not there. Even we have problem with the curriculum. So they are not prepared for tertiary education, and we have some of them dropping out of school. Teachers are not motivated to teach. Teaching has been made an all-commerce job. Those who are there, they're there because they don't have any other thing to do. So the passion is not there to prepare these students. And our curriculum needs to be restructured. We do passive teaching and learning. Students are not actively involved in learning. So they are not ready for tertiary education. We do rote learning. They cannot do critical thinking. Teachers are in a hurry to cover their curriculum. They're in a hurry to cover the syllabus. So the concentration is on coverage of syllabus. This does not give room for the students to internalize what they are taught. It does not give room for them to do critical thinking. And on the other hand, the vocational aspect of the secondary education, which should have taken care of the useful living in the society, is again neglected. Our technical schools are just there. The students don't have the facilities. They are not prepared for the society, the skills they should acquire to make them fit into the society and make them productive. cannot be taught because the facilities are not there. Again, those who don't have the ability for the academics still insist on going to senior secondary school instead of going to technical colleges because of our ideas that it is the less intelligent ones who go to technical colleges. This is not supposed to be so. So we really have the problems, and because of these problems, we are not fulfilling the objectives of secondary education in Nigeria.
Well, I'm still with our Ibadan studios. Mrs. Modukbe Okebukola, you retired as a director of... well, I'm still with you at our Ibadan Network Center. Mrs. Okebukola, you retired as a director of education and also a principal of a Unity College in Lagos. I just wanted you to give us a sense, very briefly, of your teaching odyssey. Were things any rosier when you started? When did things start to go wrong? And what were the things that went wrong? And if they did so horribly, tell us so.
I started as a classroom teacher at Federal Government Girls College, Oyo. Then it was serious business. Teaching was serious business. We had no other thing but teaching. And we had mentors. Our principals, our superior officers were there to guide us. We had the commitment, we had the passion. Even students who were not so good, we organized remedial classes. There were times to meet them, to encourage them, to make them believe in themselves. And today, many of them are professors. They're doing fine in their various fields. But gradually, things started degenerating. Teachers were no longer motivated. The incentives are not there. Their salaries are not paid. And when their salaries are not paid, it is difficult for the managers to make them do what they are supposed to do. So the problem started with the teachers not being given the right incentives. So also the infrastructure started decaying. In some of our schools now, we don't have what we can refer to as libraries, not even reading rooms in some of the schools. And over the period, things started going bad. Teachers were no longer committed. Even the students are no longer interested in their education. Years back, students were eager to learn. Students would run after their teachers to let teachers know they had problems in certain areas. It is not so now. Students really don't have interest in their studies. They're more interested in social media and other things. So, as we have problems with teachers, we have problems with students, we have problems with even parents. Parents don't have time for their children any longer, unlike before. Students now are left most of the time on their own with no close monitoring. The parents are not there to monitor them. The teachers are not committed to devoting their time to monitoring the students. For those of them in the boarding house, they are there 9 calendar months in a year. But if the teachers are not happy to do what they are supposed to do, they don't serve as the role models that they're supposed to be. In our time when we were growing, we were role models. Our students wanted to take after us. But nowadays, if you ask students what they want to be, nobody, no student would ever say that he or she would want to be a teacher. So the problems over the years have been building up. And that is why we need to do something urgent involving all the stakeholders, the teachers, the parents, the government, even the students, in order for us to correct all the wrongs that have built up over the years. So there is hope. We also have to restructure our curriculum. We have this curriculum so loaded now, so loaded that teachers are just after completing the syllabuses because they are measured by the performance of their students. No matter how hardworking a teacher is, if the student does not do well, then that teacher has not worked. So that is why the attention now is on just completing the syllabuses instead of giving the children total education. We have neglected the affective and the psychomotive aspects of education. Our concentration now is only on the cognitive, which is not going to help the society.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Okebukola. Let's also bring in Professor Banihe, who is, of course, seated right there with you. Mr. Banihe, vocational education is also an integral part of the post-primary basic education, which is intended, again, to mold, students or recipients, of course, give them a sense of, living in the society. In terms of implementation, how is it for you? How can you assess that?
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say that vocational and technical education is supposed to be an alternative route, not a route for those that are less capable. It's just a different type of education. But what is happening is that there is a poor attitude towards technical and vocational education, and because of that poor attitude is a vicious cycle. Many parents don't want to send their children to technical and vocational education, even though in terms of number, we have very few technical and vocational education schools. For instance, we have just about 21 federal FSTCs, that is Federal Science and Technical Colleges, compared to almost more than 100 unity schools we have in Nigeria. And when there is that poor attitude, there is we don't have instructional materials. You don't have these practical-oriented kind of education where you need resources, you need laboratories that are well-equipped, but go to the FSTCs today, or even the GTCs, although some states are trying to revamp. You find out that they are working with their hands. The materials are not there. And if the materials are not there, it defeats the whole purpose of such education because the students will come out without these practical skills. And apart from the materials, the resources, the teachers are not there. In fact, we are talking about declaring a state of emergency in education. Teachers in FSTCs, GTCs, many of them are retiring, the skilled ones. And I don't know what's going to happen because you cannot transfer regular teachers from secondary schools to these type of schools. Who is going to teach plumbing? Who is going to teach the catering craft? Is it somebody who did literature or English and so on? So it's a state of emergency. The students themselves, they don't have, for instance, during our assessment, during our examination, it's a very expensive venture. You give them the cutting list, that is the materials to buy to prepare for the examination. Sometimes you get there, the exams you have to reschedule because they are not able to purchase the materials needed for the examinations. Some of them work outside. There are no laboratories. For instance, those who do electrical studies and so on, you go there, there are no buildings, there are no materials, there are no resources for this. But I think that beyond that, there is also the issue of funding for these children. You know, there is supposed to be a scholarship, you know, for those who in regular secondary schools. Just yesterday, I was monitoring. I saw a sign for scholarship for students in federal colleges, but I don't think that is happening. There's no encouragement for those in technical schools. So there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of problems that need to be addressed, even now, to encourage students. And because of some of these that I have listed, what is happening is there's low enrollment. There's low enrollment. In one of the schools I visited yesterday, they used to admit more than 100 in any particular time. They have even less than 50. It's all over. And today in Nigeria and all over the world, skill is the way to go. Skill is what you need for fast development. And where the students are not attracted to technical schools, that's a disaster that is in our hands. So I think that this area needs urgent attention.
All right, Professor Ifeoma Abanihe, thank you very much. Let's go back to our Kaduna Network studios where we have two guests. Haruna Mohammed, Deputy Director, Technical Trade Division of the National Board for Technical Education. That's your board that is responsible for technical education. You'll listen to the litany of challenges outlined by Professor Abanihe, and there's some of the challenges also in secondary education. I would like you to speak to what your board thinks is an assessment of the state of technical vocational education against the background of frequent reports of governments at various levels setting up skill acquisition centers here and there, and money being reportedly spent, and yet the barrenness of it all is obvious from the comments made so far.
Thank you very much. When we talk of technical and vocational education in Nigeria, we can talk about it on two segments, especially the implementation. There is the secondary part of it, and also the institutions which are established for that purpose, that is the technical colleges. Now, in the technical colleges, these colleges are established purposely to offer technical trades. And all the students there are supposed to take all the technical trades. But in the secondary schools, we offer also vocational subjects. However, in the secondary school, there is a difference between what students can take in the secondary schools and also those which can be taken in the technical college. It is a good development by the government to say that secondary schools must actually offer a trade. That is entrepreneurship trade. But that trade is not as in-depth as that of the technical college. In the technical colleges, where skills are being offered, as you are asking the question, actually there is a proliferation of skill centers all over the country. And what we are always saying, these technical colleges which have been there before, since before independence, since colonial time, they are the ones to be revamped, and they are the ones to be equipped, well equipped. In a technical college, for instance, in a locality, all the skill centers that can be established within that technical college to expand the facilities there, to train more teachers and recruit more teachers, and also to have more workshops. And the flexibility of technical college curriculum enables it to accommodate other skills acquisition centers, which can be done inside that technical college. For instance, the conventional students there who are actually undergoing their own training, when they finish in the evening, some other students can come for the vocational for the vocational centers to come and do their own training. So instead to spend more money in building other structures outside and also buying equipment and training teachers, which are not there, then the existing technical colleges which are already there, if they are given more funding and more workshops are being built, more materials, more equipment and tools are also provided, and also the teachers are being trained more, then these students can, these acquisition centers can be done inside that technical colleges. Now I want to talk about also about the training or the vocational training in the secondary schools. You see, in the secondary schools, there are about 34 technical trades, whereas in the technical colleges, we have about 40 curriculum developed by MBT and 8 general education. Now, in the secondary school, a student is taking one vocational center, so the entrepreneurship trade, as an elective. So what we are saying, we submitted one time a memo that what we are saying during NCE, what we are saying is, let us make this experiment. We have already said that, according to policy, that all secondary school students must offer a trade, agreed. But how can we implement it? Look at the state of condition of our technical colleges in this country now. They are not equipped, no teachers, no infrastructure, and so many myriad of problems. Now, in the secondary school, if we are talking of vocational skill, or we are talking of hands-on employable skill, we are not here to say that when a student graduates from secondary school and he has taken carpentry and joinery, and he comes out, he's only by name or on paper that he has taken carpentry and joinery. No, we want him to practice that carpentry and joinery. Now, how can he practice it? What we are saying is, for instance, get a nearby technical college. Since the implementation is very difficult for the government to say that all secondary schools are provided with workshops, teachers, materials, and equipment. So why not we get one technical college nearby and pull the nearby secondary schools to come into that technical college so that they can take their own practical. There is double advantage here. The one advantage is for the secondary schools students to be having their own practical in that college, and also the technical college will also be upgraded. That is, more facilities will be supplied, more teachers will be recruited, qualified ones, and more infrastructure, especially the physical facilities in terms of workshops, in terms of laboratories, in terms of studios will be built so that they can take double advantage both for the secondary as well as for the technical college. The issue of technical college, the problems there are not only limited to the issue of infrastructure or the lack of teachers. In the case of lack of teachers, the 62nd NCE, which held in Kano early this year, approved the mandatory skill staff industrial attachment for all technical teachers. What we realized in MBT is that COS is a compulsory component of the curriculum for all students to go and spend about 2 or 3 months in the industry. But teachers of technical college, you can see that somebody who graduates about 10 years, he has never even crossed nearby an industry, not knowing that, not even to know what is happening and update his own skills. So what we are saying, and what is approved by NCE, is that every technical teacher must now go back and attach himself to an industry, relevant industry, for at least 1 month in every 3 years. This one will actually update his knowledge, update his skills, as well as his attitude.
All right, that's Haruna Mohammed, Deputy Director, National Board for Technical Education. We'll come back to you, but of course, seated beside you there is Mrs. Elizabeth Mordi, that's Director General of the Peugeot Automobile Learning Center in Kaduna. Obviously, Mrs. Mordi, yours is a hands-on learning institute. What has been your experience? First, with your intake, and what is it at the time they go through the crucible?
Thank you very much. Pan Learning Center is actually a subsidiary of Peugeot Automobile, the makers of Peugeot vehicles in Nigeria. And we started out by training the industrial staff of PAN, as well as the commercial, which is a network, the dealership of PAN. But seeing the gaps, you know, in the automotive industry, the skills gap in the automotive industry, we decided to open our doors to the public. we have heard from the contributors before me the state of education in Nigeria, the secondary education and the vocational education. We feel that we can do a lot more, and we are doing a lot more in that area. Let me start by saying that technical vocational education training in Nigeria is the answer to national development. And I repeat, the answer to national development. The reason being that is a simple arithmetic here. You have someone go through the regular school system, and at the end of the day is ends up a job seeker. And then someone goes through the technical vocational education training, and at the end of the day is self-reliant, a creator of a job creator, and adds to the economy of the country. So I think basically the government at this point in time should pay more attention to technical vocational training in Nigeria. The structure is good as far as I'm concerned if attention is given to it. The reason being that we have the National Board for Technical Education here present in Nigeria. They are doing a good job as far as I'm concerned. We also have the National Automotive, talking about the automotive industry now. We have the National Automotive Design and Development Council. Through their skills sector council, they have been able to develop the National Occupational Standard Curriculum, and that is what we run with. Now, I believe that we need to sensitize the public, as Prof said from Ibadan zone there, that the public and the parents should know that technical education is key. And it is not in any way, you know, inferior to the regular education in Nigeria. Knowing that, I think taking it on from there, we'll be able to do a lot more. Now, our experience in Pan Learning Center, we are presently training for United Nations, the internally displaced persons, and we are also training for ITF NECA, the Technical Skills Development Project. We are doing some trainings for Kano State government. So far, I would say so good, because we believe in the slogan, believe you can, and we, you know, pump this into the hearts of the trainees to ensure that they know that they are not inferior and they can do a lot more for the education sector in Nigeria. We train basically on automotive skills to fill the gaps, as I said, in the automotive industry in Nigeria. And the beauty of the training is that we are not limited to Peugeot vehicles alone. We do Toyota, we do Hyundai, we do Honda. This is to ensure that we give the trainees the best that we can, especially to be able to meet up, you know, in the industry, in the automotive industry.
All right, Mrs. Modi, thank you very much. But I just wanted you to speak briefly to the question that I asked against the background of the comments made by Mrs. Okebukola from our Ibadan Network Center. But the fact that these days at the secondary school level, you find pupils or students who are not so interested in learning, and that they're having challenges also with their curriculum, which appears to be overloaded. That's why I asked the question. What is it you find amongst those whom you admit into your program, and by the time they are out, what is it that you get?
Thank you very much. For those that we admit into the program, at the end of the day, we take them through a 12-month program with our center. And at the end of the day, we have them skilled in the automotive skills, so to say. They are properly grouped, and for example, we have those who have been trained and now they have set up their own workshops, have employees under them to work with them. So for us, you know, it is technically based and competency based, and that ensures that they learn practically the skills. It is not just on the theory base. So for us, it's a success story as far as we are concerned, and they do well in the industry.
Mrs. Modi, Actually, Kingsley is asking you, where you get your students from. But we'll return back to you. Let's quickly take a short break. When we come back, we'll begin to assess the other ingredients, of course, that make up the secondary tier of education.
Jennifer, don't tell me you're still looking for chapters for your expo.
What expo? I'm reading to pass.
Yeah, right. I beg, we all know even if you study, the surest way to graduate in this school is to do a rejo. Or better still, we hook the lecturers, Abby.
No, that's a thing of the past. I would not get a certificate I cannot defend. I would not be a burden to the nation or the society by fixing or buying certificates. That does not add value to my life. This is the era of change, and change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Quest Sports brings you the build-up and live draw to the biggest football competition on the planet. You don't want to miss this. The final draw for the 2018 FIFA World Cup Russia, 1 December on Quest Free Sports for the fan.
All right, you're welcome back. There are reactions already from our viewers who've sent in their comments via our Twitter handle. You can see that at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen at NTA GMN. We'll take some of those reactions now before we get back to our guest. Clifford Agugwe says the first. Says education inspectorates, or by whatever name called, must be peopled with persons who are fearless and incorruptible.
And Abdul Rahman Usman tweets, I'm shocked after hearing only 16 physics teachers in a state. Are we really serious?
And Nancy Onimisi tweets, good morning. Unity schools are in a sorry state all over the country. Lack of qualified teachers, poor infrastructure, and then who monitors the implementation of Unity schools' budgets? And
Hausa Ibadan 16, that's the tweet here. From the secondary and primary school, everything is collapsing. We common people are bearing the consequence. Those we vote to office send their children to the best or abroad to study.
All right. It says this is the handle is Sultan for Peace. Good morning. I think the issue is welfare of teachers, infrastructure, or the issue therefore would be the welfare of teachers, infrastructure, training, workshop, and teaching aids. Not that we do not have qualified teachers.
Now, the state of Abdul Musa tweets, the state of secondary education is, to say the least, appalling. Is it the environment, the physical structures, the teachers, or the students? There must be conscious efforts to correct the inherent distortions in the system.
Ibn Bature tweets, let's not deceive ourselves. People are not interested in teaching because you can hardly see a best graduate go for teaching. There is no motivation. 12 months without salaries.
And this one is coming from Baba Ishaka Zana. Authorities must ensure continuous supervisions of schools seriously because teachers in Borno have already left their duty to teaching practice students.
Festus Akimboyewa tweets, now government at all levels must address our weak capacity to produce the things that we need by adequately funding secondary and vocational education to provide our young people with the proper technical and practical education across the country.
Usman Waziri tweets, Education level is quite low, below the average bar. Some learning environment in the Northeast are very annoying, poor ventilated classes, but I'm very keen this administration is working on it. Kudos to the FG and NTA for focusing on this issue.
Hassan Labran tweets, most of our secondary schools are extremely poor in terms of their in terms of their academic performance and their school structures, ill-equipped laboratories and libraries.
And again, Baba Ishaq Azana tweets, public schools in Borno have become idling joint for lazy teachers who only go there to gossip rather than teach. They leave their duty to teaching practice teachers because there is zero supervision from the authorities. Private schools, though expensive, is the only option.
Mike Ayakwa, the education sector is very important in national development. Kudos to the NTA for focusing on it in recent times. Our secondary education is still more theoretical than practical, which is not good. Now we must lay more emphasis on vocational education for our technological development.
All right, those are the tweets that we have. Keep them coming. Our Twitter handle is right there. We're looking at the state of secondary and vocational education in Nigeria. Now, let's quickly move on now. We've talked about Mrs. Okebukola, and of course, all other guests have talked about the need, the issue of quality teachers. They've also mentioned the need to revisit the curriculum. So I'm going to ask now, let me begin with Chief Onoja. Is there a nexus between the quality of a curriculum and the quality of teachers, as well as the impact on the expected outcome?
Naturally, the most important person in education is the teacher. Now, we talk about child-centered education. The focus on education is on the child. And the child has the best teacher. If you have a good teacher, he has to be guided by the curriculum. But what we have today, we have teachers who on their own cannot even interpret the curriculum. There's lots of work. The greatest problem in education in Nigeria is lack of continuity. There is no sector that requires continuity like education. I have always said, in the last 62, Nigeria became independent in 1960. Since then, we have had 64 ministers, including ministers of education, and 38 permanent secretaries. Now, some ministers come for 2-3 months, some come for 2, 3, 4 years. There's need for continuity. Each time we have a minister, you go to launch your own roadmap.
Do we need to look at the curriculum again?
We have to look at the curriculum. That's why I talk about continuity. If we continue with the curriculum, you don't have to change the curriculum every year or every other year. If it's working, let it work. The most important thing is that you impart education. People who supervise this curriculum, people who interpret the curriculum should be well trained, and they should be maintained, and there should be continuity. Our greatest problem is lack of continuity.
I just wondering, the Chief Onoja, just before I go to Ibadan to bring in guests there, is it possible to make sense of some of the issues pertaining, for instance, to secondary education? As you said, it's an orphan. There's apparently no regulator. Federal government is doing its own. State governments are doing theirs. Curriculum comes, vocational education comes. You have vocational education integrated into secondary. You have technical colleges having their. Is it possible to make a sense out of all of this? Is it possible? I don't want to use the expression, by a musician one time about everything's scatter or something.
On the 26th of May 1999, Absalami Abubakar, as the head of state of this country, tried to find a solution to secondary education. He approved the Nigerian Secondary Education Commission. Like you have the NBT and NUC, there should be a body to regulate secondary education. If there's a body that can regulate secondary education, qualifications to teach in secondary education, I want to establish a secondary education. Do you have chemistry teachers? Do you have chemistry lab? Do you have physics lab? Do you have biology lab? And the quality of teachers that go there. There is no body to regulate until we can regulate who can teach in secondary school, facilities that ought to be in secondary school before it becomes a secondary school, the facilities that should be there before you present candidates for examination. We can't get it right. Let us go back. In our law books, the Nigerian Secondary Education Commission is there. but a conspiracy at a certain level killed it. And education, like Ministry of Justice, like Ministry of Health, should be headed by professionals. In the history of Nigeria, only 3 teachers have been ministers of education.
All right,
so let us have professionals. Like what is happening in the Ministry of Justice, what is happening in the Ministry of Health, should happen in the Ministry of Education.
Chief Anonja, let's pause you. Well, Mr. Jonathan Ubaka, let's bring you in here. At the policy level, so the Federal Ministry of Education, how do you make sense of the apparent miasma of curricula, policies, direction? How? Is there some clear indication as to where we are going, how we want to get there, and then proper evaluation, monitoring and evaluation of where we are in order to seek to reverse or remodel or otherwise press on with whatever we have indicated for ourselves with regard to secondary education?
Thank you very much. Curriculum, as we all know, is dynamic. And the purpose of curriculum is to drive the educational system. Now, in coming up with a curriculum, a nation needs to decide, what do we want to achieve with our education? What should education achieve? A child who goes to school and comes out, what is he meant to achieve? And that is why, over the years, you find that we have been having different curricula. In 1982, we started the 6334 system, which was planned and designed in such a way that a child who gets to Form 3, that is JSS 3, should be able to have acquired a kind of skill such that if he cannot continue his education, he should be able to go out and be an artisan or get to a technical school and progress further in that area. But we found that when we started running the curriculum, there were challenges, there were issues. There were not enough teachers. There were not enough facilities. There were not enough equipment in the workshops. So, along the line, the curriculum was looked at again, and we said, okay, now, a child who is in the junior secondary school and is taking about 13 subjects, is that not overloading the child? Let us think of how we can find a way to reduce what these children are doing so that they will be more focused and concentrate on what they are doing. And so we now had another change. So the changes in the curriculum are not just for the sake of change. They are changes that are meant to improve the system.
Mrs. Okebukola was saying that the curriculum for secondary schools is still overloaded, and then what you find, the experience, is that teachers are stampeding themselves just to, make sure that they cover the syllabus.
Yes. To a large extent, I agree with her. But that is why, as I said, we have tried to make the curriculum more compact. For example, at the junior level now, children are taking 8 subjects because some of the subjects that they used to take before have been compressed and combined with other subjects so that we now have less for them to do. And even at the senior level, you find that what is now taking place, when the 6334 policy started, you find that there were subjects that children were expected to take. Now a child who is a science student has more time to focus on the sciences because the other appendages have been reduced. Unfortunately, that again drops off another aspect because a child who goes to school is supposed to be rounded. So if you are doing science and you don't do any art courses, then you are not completely rounded.
All right. Okay, Mr. Mbaka, Claire, I just want to, because we're pressed for time now, let's go back to the former principal of the Federal Unity College in Lagos. That's Mrs. Okebukola. Mrs. Okebukola, 2 issues I would like you to address. Because, again, it's been a fairly regular complaint with regard to secondary education. Some state governments introduced free education schemes at some point so that what you saw, and I'm sure to an extent you still see it in public schools, this mass promotion of everybody, that no child is left behind. Whether the child fails or passes, everybody moves from JS1 to JS2, from JS2 to JS3, JS3 to SS1. So there's no quality regulation. What's your comment on that? Then second point about funding. We hear state government, we read about state governments who from time to time, pay WAEC fees, for pupils in their state. Is that necessarily a solution to the challenge of funding? What can be done about the fee structure in public secondary schools?
Now, thank you. As regards the issue of automatic promotion, I think that is a very serious problem. We are not getting things right. Giving students automatic promotion without giving them some remedies is not helping them. When we started teaching, students who did not do well, we identified them, we organized remedial programs, we brought them up to the level of other students. But just doing automatic promotion, is like garbage in, garbage out. The students are not gaining much from their education. Students have different learning rates. That is accepted. But all I'm saying is that those who are weak should be given adequate attention. Remedials should be held. We should help them, separate them from the others. But when we just promote them to just go on and on, at the end of the day, we push them out of school and they become problems because they have not really benefited. They have not really gained anything that will make them to be useful to themselves or to the society at large. So I think they should do a review of this case of automatic promotion. It is not right. Something should be done about it. Then about free education. If we are sincere, we are not operating free education in the sense that students are still made to pay some amount. It is not going to be really possible to ask government to give every child a free education at our state now. If we properly organize ourselves, our budget, our revenue, we can come to that level sometime later. But now I don't think we are operating any free education. And I don't think it is right to say that parents should not contribute anything towards their children's education. When they pay something, then they are committed. They know that they must have value for their money. So it isn't only that they will monitor their children, they will monitor what the teachers do because they have worked hard to earn this money. So it is important to let parents have their own contribution. Then paying for WAEC fees, that has not improved anything. It has not solved any problem. What are we paying for? Paying for students who we have not prepared to go and write the exams and pass? So that is not solving any problem. Instead of paying for the WAEC fees of students, let us improve the infrastructures. Let us make the laboratories available. Let us make the libraries there for the students to go and learn, for the students to develop themselves and actually prepare for the exams. Because at the end of the day, many of them fail out. So that means the money paid by government is wasted. I think we need to reorder our priorities.
All right, Professor Mrs. Okebukola will come back there. I know Professor Abaniye is also seated with you. But on the issue of automatic promotion, I'd like Mr. Mbaka to speak more to that because I don't know at what point that is implemented. What we know is that the national policy on education provided for another form of evaluation, the continuous assessment test. Yes, and how does that affect the quality of the outcome of students?
Thank you. For the issue of automatic promotion, now the policy says that a child is supposed to spend 9 years in basic education. That is 6 years of primary and 3 years of junior secondary, which are compulsory and are supposed to be free. So now, by that compulsory, some people tend to interpret it that that 9 years means that a child has to just go like that for those 9 years, and then if he does not at the end do well, he could exit the system. But I think basically there's a need for it to be properly looked at, because a child who goes to school, the main aim is not just for him to spend those years, but to learn. And so at the federal level, we have the Federal Education Quality Assurance Service, which monitors what is going on in the secondary schools. They go out, they look at the facilities that are on ground, the teaching that is done, the pastoral care, and so on. However, the challenge there is that because of this issue of concurrent list and so on, you find that the state governments are not too open to the federal inspectors coming in. I would like to appeal to state governments. This thing is not a competition. It should be a cooperation so that the federal and the state will join hands together and move education forward.
Right. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Jonathan Mbaka. Let's get the thoughts of Professor Ifeoma Abani here. Very briefly, from your interaction, as I said earlier, your headquarters is in Benin, but you are now in Ibadan. You probably go around the country. Do you get a sense of any major intervention or any willingness on the part of stakeholders, federal, state, local government, and parents, and so on and so forth, to tackle the challenges that have been identified with regard to secondary and vocational education in the country?
Thank you very much. Yes, some states have started revamping their own colleges. For instance, in Benin, where our headquarters is, there's a lot going on there. The governor and his team, the Benin Technical and the rest of them. But I still think that there's a fundamental reason why there is a low patronage to technical and vocational education that needs to be addressed. The issue of the benefit, the ultimate benefit to the products. For instance, NAPTEP, we have different certificates. One is the O level, which is equivalent to WAEC and NECO. Many people don't know that NTC, NBC, they are certificates that you can use both for your professional as a technician. You go and establish yourself, and it helps you towards self-reliance. But if in the event that you still want to continue your education later on, you can move forward. It is some of these reasons why you see, even when the states try to restructure and make the technical schools, attractive, some students may not know that. So it's important to know. But there is also another aspect which some states are doing, the lower level craftsmanship, which also NAPTEP has a new certificate called Modular Trade Certificate. Indeed, yesterday I was discussing this with the principal of Owo Technical, and it's an attractive idea that even those roadside technical people, they can come into the traditional technical colleges and do some maybe 3 to 4 months training using their facilities, their workshops, and get certified, get systematic training with which they will go out and practice. So a lot is happening, and that principal and some others I have discussed with assured me that this is a route that can be taken in other states. We have done that with Abuja state government, and also in Onitsha. A lot is happening that is not only that O-level, the equivalent certificate, there is also this other low-level modular trade certificate, which some people are taking advantage of.
All right, we'd like to thank you, Professor Abanihe. Let's get to Kaduna studio, of course, where we have Hussein Haruna Mohammed. Malam Mohammed, very briefly, how can we or what can we do to motivate students now to begin to take interest or more interest in vocational studies?
One of the greatest challenges facing the technical college graduates is the issue of subject combination. Now, a technical college graduate will take one trade or will take a trade and graduate in that trade. Now, when he applies to any tertiary institution, that particular trade is not given any cognizance. Why do I say this? If he has 5 credits without even that trade, he can still get admission, just like his counterpart in the conventional conventional secondary school. But he should have an advantage that if he graduates as a mechanical engineering craft student, that his own priority will be given first in any tertiary institution relevant to his own area of studies. That is one. Secondly, there should be a certain incentive for these technical students, because as they see it, they are not very much ready, or they are not very much interested. And the dilapidation of the technical colleges is also very discouraging. I can give one example. In one state, that we went for an inspection, that the workshops, the classrooms, and even the offices of the teachers there was during rainy season was leaking. They are all leaking. But just across the road, by their own side, is a well-built secondary school. So how can you encourage students to come, or parents to come, to bring their own words into this college, whereas the level of dilapidation is so high and they cannot actually repair it? So it is one of the major issues is that the government should actually, especially the state government should especially put more funds in the technical colleges.
All right, we'd like to thank you, Hussein Haruna Mohammed, Deputy Director, Technical Trade Division, for your, of course, response. And we do want to apologize. Time is fast ticking away, and we must take these tweets that have come in. And Mrs. Modi, we must apologize to you. We're unable to take more questions from your end. Kingsley, want to quickly take the tweets?
Well, let's take the tweets now. This the comments coming in from our viewers. Mayaki Moshood says, your recent topics are the real and only way out of our national problems. To build a nation, you must develop its human resource.
And Christopher Ngozi tweets, the Unity schools are doing their job. The main problem is that students are not ready to learn. They prefer Facebook.
Clifford Aguguese tweets, it's not enough to say vocational education is not inferior. Let the salaries of graduates reflect this equality. And
Clifford Aguguese says...
I just read that. That's
okay.
The next one. That's almost Santander. That's what
okay,
you got
almost, okay. The major problem of public education in Nigeria is that the schools are for the poor masses. The policymakers have their words elsewhere.
And Nancy Onimisi tweets, it seems governments, that's both states and federal, governments have relinquished their roles to the PTA, that's the Parent Teacher Association, and alumni. Now, you see PTA paying for teachers, and you see alumni helping in renovating. Something has to be done.
And Abdurrahman Usman tweets, a secondary school regulatory body should be created to solve the problem of the state of secondary education in Nigeria.
And again, Maya Kimo showed the educational curriculum must be a federal government task. Education ministry must also be handled by educationists like other professions. All right, so those are the tweets that we have. We'd like to appreciate all our 6 guests who've been with us in the course of this conversation. We'd like to thank always Chief Sylvester Onoja, former principal KC Lagos, and also former commissioner for education, Kogi State. Chief Onoja, thanks a lot for being part of our discussion.
Right.
All right, and Mr. Jonathan Umbaka, Director from the Federal Ministry of Education, thanks for being part of our discussion this morning.
Thank you.
From Ibadan, we were joined by 2 guests, Professor Ifeoma Abanihe, Registrar and Chief Executive of NAPTEP, that's the National Business and Technical Examination Board. Thank you. She's there to the left of the screen, and to the right of the screen, Mrs. Modukbe Okebukola, Retired Director of Education and also ex-principal of Federal Unity College in Lagos. Thank you very much for being part of our discussion. And also from Kaduna, we had Mrs. Elizabeth Modi, DG, Peugeot Automobile Learning Center, as well as Haruna Mohammed, Deputy Director of NBTE, National Board for Technical Education. So that does it for our second topic on the challenges with our educational sector. On Tuesday, we took on basic education today. We have discussed secondary and vocational. Tomorrow, we'll also be taking a look at another segment, this time climbing upstairs to the tertiary level.
All right, Kingsley, let's quickly take a look at what's happening in the arts and entertainment world.
America holds her charms as Duncan.